Hey everybody, I hope you're having a great week. I just wanted to jump on and talk a little bit about tolerance, which we'll jump into in a minute. Just a few housekeeping things. As I mentioned, I started a YouTube channel. If you want to subscribe to that, just go ahead and click the link and hit the subscribe button. If you need to be removed from the text messaging group that I'm going to use to continue to send the links out, feel free to just let me know. I'm happy to do that. I know a lot of people get text messages, but my plan is to continue to send this link out to all of you. I know a lot of you don't get on YouTube and have no plans of doing so. So with that, let's jump into tolerance. Now, tolerance is boy, is it a buzzword today. If you start to look and listen to social media, if you listen to our liberal media, if you listen to any media, the word tolerance jumps up all the time. We are called as Christ followers because of our beliefs, because of the way that we live. We are called intolerant many, many times. I think that there's two words involved here. I think it's tolerance and acceptance. I made a few notes, and tolerance basically means to endure differences of opinion, to endure differences of those who live differently than you. But acceptance is a level of mutual respect and appreciation for one's beliefs. Those are two different things. There's enduring what somebody else believes, and then there's accepting it in a way that provides mutual respect and appreciation. And I don't think we're called to do the second. I will say that I do believe that we're called to be tolerant as Christ followers, with the ultimate goal to be able to share with others. With that, I started to look through the Old Testament, and I could find example after example where I thought God was tolerant and where I thought God was intolerant. When I say intolerant, that's not a bad thing. That means that God was just in everything he did, because he's always just in everything that he does. If you look at the Garden of Eden, you could say that God was tolerant when he did not strike Adam and Eve dead as soon as they ate the forbidden fruit. You could say that he was intolerant when he kicked them out of the garden, made them till the ground, live a life that was very difficult, a son, Cain, that killed another son, Abel, and all of the stuff that they had to endure. You could say that he was intolerant. I didn't say unjust. I said you could say that he was intolerant. You could go through the Old Testament and you can find example after example where you could point to and say that there I think God was very tolerant. There I think he was intolerant. Jonah and the whale. Jonah did not do as God asked him to do immediately, and God was tolerant with him and gave him another chance. Now through that, you could say God was intolerant because he was a stowaway, that he got cast into the ocean, he got swallowed by a fish, he was scared to death. Not unjust. I didn't say unjust, but as humans, we could point to times where we would think that God was tolerant, and we would say that although just, he was intolerant. Then I started to look at it and I said, it doesn't really matter what I think or what you think in terms of whether God was tolerant or intolerant. He was executing a plan, and he is always just in what he does. Remember, we live in a dictatorship. We don't live in a democracy. God is our king and he is the dictator. We are his followers. So then I fast forwarded to the New Testament and I said, how are we supposed to live? And as you guessed it, Christ gives us the perfect example of how we are supposed to live when it comes to this world that's calling us to be tolerant of everything that goes on around us. No matter how wicked or how opposite it is from what we believe, the world's calling us to be tolerant. And guess what? I think the Bible calls us to be tolerant too. If I look at Christ's life, I only have one example of when I can find that he was intolerant, and that is when he went through the temple and they were changing money and selling goods, and it angered him. He turned over all of the money tables and the good tables that held goods, and he said, "You will not do this in my Father's house." He was very intolerant of that. He was not going to have it. But if you look at the rest of his life, from the way he dealt with the Pharisees and the Sadducees, the way he dealt with those when he was on trial, the way he dealt with his disciples bickering amongst each other, the way he dealt with the woman at the well, the way he dealt with everybody else as the holy person that never sinned that he was that he tolerated those around him. Why? So he could have the ultimate hope of being able to share who he was, and that's what we should be doing. We should be tolerating those around us so that we can ultimately share Christ with them. Now understand, when I say that we should tolerate. I'm not saying we should accept. We don't have to have, I got to grab my notes, I'm sorry. We don't have to have mutual respect for a specific lifestyle or actions, and we don't have to have appreciation for those things that go against us. But we do need to endure them. And through our endurance, let's focus less, I think, on what others do and how they live their lives, and more on how we're letting our light and our life in Christ shine so that it becomes more of what we focus on instead of what others around us are doing. Now, I did want to share a passage that I think lines right up with this, that really points to the fact that we need to be loving and we need to be tolerant. And it's in Matthew chapter 5, and it starts in verse 43. It's in the Beatitudes. I'm going to put my head down here to read. And it says, "You have heard that it was said, 'Love your neighbor and hate your enemy.' But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, that you may be children of your Father in heaven. He causes the sun to rise on the evil and the good. He sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous. If you love those who love you, what reward will you get? Are not even the tax collectors doing that? And if you greet only your own people, what are you doing more than others? Do not even the pagans do that? Be perfect, therefore, as your Father in heaven is perfect." I think it's pretty clear from that passage. This was the Beatitudes, Sermon on the Mount, thousands of people. Jesus was speaking a broad message, and he was basically saying that we need to love our enemies. For this instance, our enemies are those that believe opposite of what we believe. And if Christ is calling us to love our enemies, tolerate our enemies, I think that certainly means that we can tolerate our enemies, and it's something that we should do. So I hope this was helpful. Hopefully it sparks some discussion and some more study. Always open to comments, and feel free to leave a comment, send me a text message, and share this with anybody you think that it might help. So I hope you guys have a great day. We'll chat soon.